Hi guys, and welcome to Daily Happening. My name is Excel Namdi, and in this video I will be talking to you about living in the present. I am a wellness enthusiast, a psychologist, and I also have a YouTube channel where I talk about all these matters solely for young people. You could check it out at Wellness at Excel. So in this video, we'll be talking about living in the present, what living in the present is, what it's all about, how you could practice living in the present, and why you should live in the present. That being said, let's get into the video. What is living in the present? Living in the present is simply not stressing about the past and not worrying about the future, but consciously living each day as it is. Most times when people talk about living in the present, certain terms come along with it: mindfulness, awareness, and granularity. So I'll be talking about mindfulness, awareness, and granularity, what's different about the three, and how you could actually practice living in the present. But since I have defined living in the present, you probably need to know why it's important for you to live in the present. Now in this age, everyone is living in the fast life. Pressing phones, social media, internet age, and everything is just going so fast. A lot of times we find ourselves multitasking. We find ourselves doing a lot of things without really doing anything well. So it's kind of like the concept of superficiality. Everything is done on the surface. There's no depth to what we do a lot of times. So that is why it's important that people live in the present. A lot of people who turned out to be geniuses, great at their work, and doing whatever it is they did that brought them so much attention, it was because they paid attention to the littlest of details in whatever they were doing consciously. And how did they get to do that? The only way you could get to do that is simply by living consciously and aware of each day, each second that's passing. And that's living in the present. So now we come to mindfulness. Mindfulness is the term that's largely used to associate with living in the present, because mindfulness talks about paying attention to what's happening around you per time. In order to be mindful, you need to put your thoughts towards one thing and devote your time to that thing, complete that task, then move on to the next. Under mindfulness, you hear things like mindful eating, mindful living, mindful this, mindful that. Everything is still talking about mindfulness, how it's important to be consciously doing whatever it is you're doing. Then we move on to awareness. Awareness is a very broad thing, and awareness falls under mindfulness in the sense that when you are aware of what is happening, it means you're being mindful. Awareness is simply the popular word used for it, or the word that is really not a technical concept, but just something that would explain the idea of being mindful. In that sense, when you're mindful, you are aware. Awareness. Then we come to the third one I mentioned, which is granularity. Granularity sounds like a big term, but it's actually pretty simple. We talked about mindfulness being aware, awareness being alert. So what exactly could granularity mean? Now remember I mentioned superficiality the other time. I said something about people living on the surface, people not really giving depth to whatever it is they are doing. Now the opposite of giving depth to what you're doing, not living on the surface and paying attention to the littlest of details, is granularity. In order for you to actually achieve granularity, you need to live in the present. And why should you even achieve granularity? Because that's the only way to stand out. Like, average is crowded. We can't keep being ordinary. Running a race at the ordinary level is already crowded. You need to start running your race at the extraordinary level. And people who run at the extraordinary level are people who have achieved granularity. In other words, they pay attention to the littlest of details regarding everything that concerns them. If they are doing a work, if they are doing a task, even if it's something as simple as eating, living, sleeping, waking up, they pay attention to the littlest of details. And that is how they are able to attain granularity. Now, mind you, you won't just wake up in the morning and after watching this video, you just start saying you've achieved granularity or you can now practice granularity. It may take a while because you're used to spending time on your phone, you're used to being distracted by a lot of things, so it's fine. You simply have to keep practicing. Now we'll talk about the things you can practice in order to slowly achieve mindfulness or granularity, whichever one you choose to call it. But all of them, we're still talking about living in the present. Now, my first tip for living in the present is to enjoy each activity you're doing solely for that activity. In other words, are you reading a book? Don't be reading the book while you're thinking of what you're going to do after the book. Are you preparing something? Are you cooking? Are you writing? Are you typing? Don't think of something else while doing one thing. You just need to keep your thoughts with that activity you're doing. Complete it and move on to the next. Even if you're multitasking. While I was reading the book, The 5 a.m. Club, there's something the writer said. He said a lot of times when people talk, give directions, or explain certain things, it's not easy to understand. And that's because their thinking process in itself is flawed, it's conflicted. In other words, when you're not thinking clearly, you cannot explain something clearly. You cannot explain directions clearly once you're not thinking clearly. So even when you're multitasking, you could actually be multitasking and not be thinking clearly and have things that are not even part of that task you're currently doing occupying your mind. And it just makes you get tired easily, makes you burn out easily. So even if you choose to multitask, it's fine to multitask. You just simply need to keep what you're doing currently in your mind, not do one thing and now think of another thing. That's against it. Then I move on to my next tip. My next tip would be spending time visualizing. What does it mean to visualize? To visualize is to simply sit down and think of the future or think of how you want your day to turn out. Let's walk slowly now. Look at it day by day. You wake up in the morning and you have a couple of things for the day. You want to sit down and just look and say, how is today going to go? I can imagine today going perfectly. I can imagine doing this, doing that. I'm finishing today and just being grateful for the day. That is visualization. You think about something that you're expecting, something you want to see, and you just see the entire thing happen in your imagination before actually starting out. What happens is that it puts you in a good mood, it puts you in a good place, it gives you hope that the day is going to turn out well. So even if things don't turn out well, you started the day on the right foot. You didn't start the day doubting or expecting things to fall by the wayside. And I come to my third tip. My third tip is to practice being grateful. Practice being grateful. This could come from having a gratefulness journal. This could come for simply standing and saying, oh, I'm thankful for being alive, I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for that. Just being grateful. A lot of times we expect things to come to us and we're not thankful that things come to us because we feel we deserve it. We feel that the world owes us something. But most times the world doesn't owe anybody anything. The world doesn't owe anybody anything. In fact, life is really not balanced at all. So if you have things going well, it's something to be thankful for. It's something to be grateful for. So we've come to the end of this video. I hope you've learned something and you understand the term living in the present and you're able to practice one of these things and actually live in the present. Enjoy granularity, enjoy depth in what you're doing, and play at the game of the extraordinary, where the competition is a lot less than the level of the ordinary. Thank you guys for staying with me. I'm Excel Namdi, and you can check out my YouTube channel, Wellness with Excel, for any questions, and I hope to see you once again. Bye!